duel is being unleashed in Florida's Everglades to hunt Burmese pythons. All right, take a look at this right here. Scientists have deployed 120 robot rabbits.
Florida is deploying robotic rabbits to help capture invasive Burmese pythons in the Everglades.
Florida's Everglades are being eaten alive. The culprit? The Burmese python. And the newest soldiers in the fight are made of wires and synthetic fur. After every trap and hunter failed, the state launched a secret, high-tech plan: release an army of robotic rabbits. These decoys were designed to be the perfect bait for the world's most elusive snakes. But what happened next was brutal. The robots didn't just attract the snakes, they attracted everything. The project became a total wreck within 72 hours, a costly disaster that left officials wondering where it all went wrong. Until finally, hiding in the middle of the wreckage, a young analyst found something. A secret that changes everything we know about how these snakes move. The pet trade disaster. Florida's Everglades are being eaten alive by a predator that doesn't even belong there. The culprit is the Burmese python, a massive constrictor that has turned the state's wetlands into its own personal kingdom. This isn't just a few snakes here and there. We're talking about tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of giant predators slithering through the grass.
Predator becomes prey in the Florida Everglades as hundreds of hunters descend on the Sunshine State to catch and kill as many Burmese pythons as possible.
The thing nobody tells you is that this invasion wasn't an act of nature. It was a massive human mistake that started decades ago. Back in the 1980s and 90s, baby pythons were the hot new item in the exotic pet trade. They were sold as beautiful, harmless curiosities that could fit in the palm of your hand. But those tiny pets grew fast. Within a few short years, they reached lengths of 15 to 20 feet. They became powerful enough to overpower a deer or even a 6-foot alligator. Many owners were completely unprepared for a literal monster living in their guest room. When the snakes got too big to handle, people started releasing them into local canals and swamps. Then, in 1992, Hurricane Andrew tore through South Florida. The storm was a Category 5 monster that destroyed countless reptile breeding facilities. This released an unknown number of pythons into the wild all at once. Those escaped snakes joined the ones already there and started breeding like crazy. For a python, the Everglades is a total paradise. It's got warmth, endless water, and a buffet of prey that never evolved to fear a giant snake. These snakes have no natural predators in Florida, and they've the shocking ability to lay up to 100 eggs at a time. Because of that, their population just exploded. Native mammals have paid the ultimate price. In areas where pythons are dominant, there's been a near-total disappearance of raccoons, possums, and marsh rabbits. We're talking about populations dropping by over 90%. It's catastrophic. One large python was even found with a full-grown adult deer inside its stomach. In another famous case, a python was filmed fighting an alligator in a battle so intense that both animals ended up losing their lives.
This epic battle of the bulging stomachs is raging across the Everglades, and the Burmese python is eating its way to top predator.
This loss of small animals creates a chain reaction. Fewer scavengers means decaying matter stays on the ground, which actually changes the soil. The state tried everything to stop them. They launched the Python Challenge in 2013, which was a massive media event. They offered cash prizes and glory to anyone who could catch a snake. Thousands of people showed up with machetes and airboats, but after weeks of hunting, they only found 68 snakes. Yeah, about that. It was a total public relations stunt, not a real solution. 68 snakes out of a population of thousands is basically nothing. Officials realized they needed a more professional approach. They started the Python Elimination Program, hiring top contractors to patrol the levees at night. These hunters get an hourly wage plus bonuses for every snake they remove. It's a tough job and the math is brutal. It costs millions of dollars to pay people to hunt over such a massive area. And for every snake they take out, it feels like 2 more take its place. They even tried using Judas snakes. They'd catch a male python, fit him with a radio tracker, and let him lead them to the breeding females. It helped a bit, but it wasn't enough to turn the tide. The Everglades is just too big, covering over 1.5 million acres. They needed a hunter that didn't rely on luck or human eyes. The state finally realized that brute force was a losing game. They needed something smarter, something that could lure the snakes out of the deep brush and into the open. That's when the secret plan involving high-tech robotics was born. But as the first mechanical hunters entered the water, nobody expected the local residents to fight back so hard. The robots were ready for snakes, but they weren't ready for what was waiting in the dark water. Alligator versus machine. When the bounty programs failed to make a real dent in the numbers, wildlife managers knew they needed a new strategy. They realized they needed a way to attract the snakes instead of just looking for them. They started with a small experiment using dogs. Two special dogs named Truman and Eleanor were trained to smell the musky odor that pythons leave behind. It's a scent that humans can't detect at all. These dogs were incredible, finding snakes in minutes that humans had missed for hours. But the problem was the scale. You can't put two dogs on 1,000,000 acres and expect to win. They'd need hundreds of dog teams, and that's just too expensive. So, the scientists asked a different question. What if the bait could bring the snakes to us? They briefly tried using live rabbits in protected pens. The pythons loved it and showed up in droves. But here's the deal. Using live animals as bait caused a massive public outcry. Animal welfare groups were furious, and the funding was pulled immediately. That's when the engineers stepped in to build the Robo-Rabbit. Each unit was a marvel of design. They were built to be the perfect snack. Each one had a thermal pad that emitted a constant heat signature of 99 degrees Fahrenheit, exactly like a living marsh rabbit. They also had tiny emitters that released synthetic rabbit musk into the breeze. Some models even had small motors to make the ears and nose twitch. For a python, it looked, smelled, and felt like a real meal.
That heat signature hopefully is going to make it look like an actual live animal to the python, and then it's supposed to smell like a live animal, and it's supposed to move around like a live animal.
Each robot cost nearly $4,000 to build, and they were packed with motion-triggered cameras and GPS trackers. The plan was to deploy 120 of these robotic rabbits in known python hotspots. The idea wasn't to harm the snakes directly, but to lure them into zones where teams could quickly remove them. When the first units went out, the excitement was through the roof. For the first 2 days, it actually worked. Cameras captured amazing footage of massive pythons approaching the decoys. One snake, over 15 feet long, was filmed coiling its body around a fake rabbit, trying to squeeze the life out of a piece of plastic. The hunters moved in and removed several large snakes right away. It looked like a total victory for technology. But then day 3 happened and things got brutal. An alert came in from a decoy near a deep water canal. When the biologists checked the live feed, they didn't see a snake. Instead, they saw a dark, heavy shape moving through the grass at high speed. It was a 12-foot alligator. The gator wasn't confused. It was just as hungry as the snakes. It saw a warm, twitching animal and didn't hesitate. In one violent explosion of mud and water, the alligator crushed the $4,000 robot in a single bite. But it didn't stop there. Because the robots were all over the shared hunting grounds, a new kind of war began. The alligators quickly learned that these robots were an easy, if slightly metallic, meal. Within a week, dozens of the robotic rabbits were destroyed. Some were dragged into the water, while others were bitten in half and left in the mud. The pythons, sensing the presence of the aggressive alligators, started avoiding the trap sites entirely. The project was, to put it mildly, a complete disaster. Millions of dollars of tech were lying in pieces across the swamp. It seemed like the snakes had won again, and the robotic army was retreating in shame. But as the engineers started collecting the broken parts, they realized the robots had been doing something else the whole time. The smashed circuits held a secret that the alligators couldn't destroy, and it changed the war forever. Decoding predator behavior. The robotic rabbit project was officially dead, and the critics were having a field day. It looked like a massive waste of taxpayer money. But while the public was laughing at the gator food, a young data analyst was looking at the recovered hard drives. Even though the robots were smashed, the internal sensors had been recording data up until the very last second. And get this. The robots weren't just decoys, they were accidental spies. Each unit had been logging every single movement in its vicinity for 24 hours a day. They tracked temperature, humidity, wind direction, and the exact timing of every animal that passed by. The crazy part is what happened when they put all that data into a learning AI. When they looked at the 120 different locations, a pattern started to emerge that no human had ever seen before. For years, biologists thought pythons just wandered randomly through the Everglades, but the data showed that wasn't true at all. The pythons were actually using highways. These are specific hidden corridors in the sawgrass and water that the snakes use to travel between hunting grounds. The AI revealed that these snakes are incredibly calculated. They move at very specific times of night to avoid the peak activity of alligators. It's a social calendar of fear and survival that had been hidden from us for decades. By cross-referencing the near misses, where a robot saw a snake but wasn't attacked, the AI built a three-dimensional map of the entire predator landscape. It showed exactly where the pythons felt safe and where they were vulnerable. This ghost map was worth way more than the $4,000 spent on each robot. It's not that simple, though. Knowing where they move is one thing, but finding out where they start is the real prize. The AI started pointing toward specific areas of the deep swamp that humans usually avoid. These were spots where the data suggested a high concentration of large, mature females. What most people don't realize is that catching a single snake on a levee doesn't really stop the invasion. You have to find the source. The AI began to predict exactly where the pythons would be at 3 in the morning based on the weather patterns recorded by the robots. It was like having a GPS for an invisible enemy. The hunters didn't need to sit and wait anymore. They had a playbook. They could now intercept the snakes on their secret highways before they ever reached the native bird nests or mammal habitats. This shift from passive hunting to an active offensive was a game changer. The team realized they were no longer just reacting to an invasion. They were finally getting ahead of it. They prepared a new mission based entirely on the AI's predictions. They were heading into the heart of the no-go zones, places where the grass is so thick you can't see your own feet. They were looking for the headquarters of the Python Empire, and the data said they were getting very close. The map led them to a place so hidden that it felt like another planet entirely. Future of high-tech hunting. Armed with the new AI map, the hunters moved out. This wasn't like the old days of driving up and down the roads. They were trekking miles into the deep, wet heart of the Everglades. The results were immediate and staggering. In just the first month of using the AI's predictions, the team removed more invasive pythons than they'd in the entire previous year of the bounty program. But the real shock came when they reached the coordinates the AI had highlighted as high probability zones. They weren't just finding individual snakes, they were finding the breeding grounds. In the middle of a remote island of vegetation, they found a massive nest. It was buried so deep in the swamp that no human would have ever stumbled upon it by accident. There were dozens of large females guarding thousands upon thousands of eggs. This was the source of the nightmare. By removing these mature females and their eggs all at once, they did more damage to the python population in one afternoon than 1,000 hunters could do in a year on the levees. The numbers were almost unbelievable. They were finally hitting the snakes where it hurt the most. It turns out the robotic rabbits, even as they were being crushed by alligators, had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The robotic rabbits failed as bait, but won as spies. But here's the real question. Did this high-tech data just save the Everglades, or are we just teaching the pythons how to be even more elusive? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Unsealed Prophecy for more revelations.